Well, it's been a minute since I made a video. I told you guys I was moving, so I wasn't really able to have the time to make videos for you guys. But the move is done. You can see I'm in my new office space. I'm not crowded in the corner at the top of the stairs anymore. And now it's time to get back to talking about some games. Today we're going to talk about what First Edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and, by extension, OSRIC and For Golden Glory do well for ability scores. How the ability scores are different than what you see in Basic Expert and the retro clones of those games, and different from what 5e has done, which is kind of go back to that single modifier system. We're going to take a look at both of those and talk about it. I'm Tristan. This is Heroes in Homebrew. Okay, so the difference with 1e and OSRIC and For Golden Glory, what they've done differently with the ability scores is instead of just having a single modifier for depending on what your ability score is, has modifiers for different things. So if we go and look at OSRIC here, you can see they have a different ability score for the bonus to hit and to damage for the strength. A modifier for what your encumbrance will be in pounds, like additional to what to the base. Minor tests, which would be forcing doors, etc. Things that require strength but aren't Herculean efforts. And then, of course, with bending bars and lifting portcullis, which is an extremely difficult thing to do, but you have a modifier for that as a percentage. Now, 1e and For Golden Glory, they use the d6 and percentile dice far more often than something like 5e would do, where you just roll your d20 and add your modifier against a difficulty. I like the d6 and percentage better. You know, it gets you rolling some different dice and it's a bit more fun. It's a little more complicated. It's not as basic, but it's something different and easy to work with once you get used to it. The dexterity, you have a modifier for your surprise bonus, for your missile bonus to hit, and your AC adjustment. Now, because OSRIC and For Golden Glory and 1e use the descending armor class, if you're playing something that uses the ascending armor class, like say if you're playing basic fantasy role-playing or something like that, all you would have to do is just invert the scores. Like, for instance, if you have a 3 dexterity score, first of all, if you have a 3 dexterity score, just scrap that character and make a new one. But you get a +4 to your AC because it's descending, so the higher AC is worse. And a 19, you have a -4. So I would just invert that if I'm using ascending. In Constitution, you have your hit point bonus per die. So that means you get your bonus when you roll your hit points, and you really only get a modifier at very low score or particularly high scores. Your survive, resurrection, or raise dead, which is something really cool, and I think they've done away with in more modern games, is whether or not you're actually going to survive it. And survive system shock, which is another thing that they've pretty much done away with. Intelligence is basically just additional languages. Wisdom is your mental saving throw bonus. Now, a lot of games that have the single saving throw, which I like using a single saving throw. I think it's less complicated for the DM to work with, because you don't have to figure out, this isn't really against ones, but it's not really against death and all this. You just single saving throw works, but it's something, this bonus you can apply in that case as well. Charisma is how many henchmen you have, or by extension retainers. Their loyalty, you have a bonus to their loyalty on a percentile dice, and a bonus to your reaction roll when you come across someone. Now, if we look at For Golden Glory, it's very much the same. They have the melee attack, damage, non-encumbrance. They added max weight as well. Force door would be the minor tests, and bend bar lift gates would be the major tests. I don't have a PDF of the 1E Player's Handbook, but I know that OSRIC and For Golden Glory have kind of put them both into one, whereas in 1E they expanded it out. If you don't know, For Golden Glory is the clone of 2nd edition, so it's very much the same, and they can be used largely interchangeably. The dexterity, same, your surprise modifier, missile attack, AC modifier. Again, For Golden Glory uses ascending armor class, so if you're going to use descending, I would just invert them. Constitution, same thing. Your HP modifier, your system shock, resurrection chance, poison resistance, and regeneration. Poison resistance, I don't think OSRIC has. Well, that would be your system shock, I guess. It would fall into that as well. Intelligence, language is known, which that's the only thing that OSRIC has under the intelligence one, but this one for the intelligence, you have your max spell level you can attain, your max number of spells as well, and your percentage to learn a spell, and your illusion immunity. Because in 2E they have the illusionist class as well. So OSRIC for wisdom, you have your mental saving throws. For Golden Glory, you have your mental defense modifier, spells, spell failure, spell immunity. And charisma is the same, essentially. Maximum henchman, loyalty, and the reaction modifier. So even if you don't plan on playing these games, whether you're like playing OSRIC or 1E or For Golden Glory, you can take that idea and put it into your game. The nice thing about a lot of OSR games is they're largely modular. You can take things from other games and add them in without breaking the game. If you wanted to, you could take this and you could add it into your basic fantasy RPG, and it wouldn't change the game at all. You would just have that little extra bit of, detail and minutia if you're into doing that. You can kind of make it, instead of basic fantasy RPG, you can make it advanced fantasy RPG if you wanted to. So that's something I really like, and I think I might start implementing. I kind of want to run OSRIC, but I'm not 100% sure. It is a little more rules heavy than I like, but there are things from it that I would maybe like to apply to my games. So if my next game, after we finish the white box game, I think I'm going to do basic fantasy. But there are things from OSRIC that I would like to apply to it, and it's not going to change the game at all. So that's it for that. It's just a quick look at OSRIC and For Golden Glory, and by extension the 1E ability scores, and how you can take them and use them to modify your current OSR game. Or even if you're playing 5E, you can use them in your 5E game. It's going to change some things. You might need to tweak it a bit, but it would still be usable, and I think it might make things a little more interesting if you are sort of more advanced in that game and maybe want a little more crunch to it. That's it for me. I'm Tristan. This is Heroes in Homebrew. Save a spot for me at your table.